Ethan Carter adjusted the cuff of his shirt, trying to ignore the way his brother's voice carried across the room. The Carter family reunion had always been a noisy affair, filled with too much food, too many opinions, and an unspoken competition over who had achieved the most. At 38, Ethan had built a respectable custom furniture business from nothing. His workshop was small but busy, his clients loyal, his reputation growing. But in the Carter family, success wasn't measured in craftsmanship, was measured in corporate titles, stock portfolios, and foreign cars. "Hey, Ethan," Brad called, out from the bar area, a drink in hand and a smirk on his face. "Still making coffee tables in that little garage of yours? You know Amazon sells those for $50, right?" Laughter erupted around him. Their mother, perched elegantly in her favorite armchair, added, "We just want you to think bigger, honey. Maybe one day you'll get a real career. Something you can be proud of." Ethan's jaw tightened. "I am proud of what I do." His sister Danielle leaned toward her teenage daughter Emma and whispered just loud enough for Ethan to hear, "Don't end up like your uncle wasting your potential." Emma giggled, then muttered, "Such a loser." The word landed like a sucker punch, and the laughter that followed twisted the knife. Ethan scanned the room, the people he'd quietly supported for years, in ways they never knew, and realized something with cold clarity. They would never respect him. He set his drink down on the coffee table. From his pocket, he pulled a small keyring and placed it next to the glass. "Where are you going?" his mother asked, puzzled. Ethan's voice was steady. "Doing what I should have done a long time ago." Without another word, he walked out. 3 hours later, Ethan sat in a modest office downtown. Grace Thompson, his lawyer and longtime friend, slid a thick folder across the desk. "You sure about this?" she asked. "Every step," Ethan replied. "Then we start tonight," Grace said. "By tomorrow morning, they'll understand exactly what they've lost." By the time the sun rose the next morning, the Carter household was buzzing, but not with the usual reunion chatter. At 8 a.m. sharp, Grace Thompson arrived at their front door in a navy suit, her posture as crisp as her words. Danielle opened the door, bleary-eyed and suspicious. "Grace, what are you doing here? Is Ethan with you? May I come in?" Grace asked professionally. Inside, Brad sat at the kitchen counter, scrolling his phone, while their parents occupied the living room. Emma, still in pajamas, was slouched on the couch. Eyes glued to a TikTok video. Grace set her briefcase down and remained standing. 3 months ago, Ethan Carter retained my services to prepare for a complete financial and legal separation from this family. 1 month ago, he instructed me to finalize those plans. As of 6 p.m. yesterday, all financial ties between Ethan and this household have been severed. Their mother frowned. "Financial ties? What are you talking about?" Grace opened the folder. "Let's start with the Carter family cabin in Pine Ridge. Ethan paid off the foreclosure 6 years ago. The deed is in his name only. You've been living there rent-free every summer at his expense. As of this morning, the locks have been changed, and a realtor has been contracted to sell it." Brad's face darkened. "That's not his right." "It's entirely his right," Grace interrupted. "Next, the Carter & Sons contracting business. Ethan has quietly invested $185,000 over the past 8 years, keeping it afloat during slow seasons and covering payroll when contracts fell through. Yesterday, he withdrew all remaining funds and dissolved his partnership stake. Those accounts are now closed." Danielle shifted uncomfortably. "Wait, if he pulls that money, we can't pay your suppliers." "Correct," Grace said flatly. Emma's head finally lifted from her phone. "What about my college fund?" Grace turned to her. "The $42,000 scholarship account your uncle set up for you has been reassigned to a different recipient. He felt it would be better invested in someone who believes in him." Emma's mouth dropped open. "That's not fair." Grace raised an eyebrow. "Neither is calling someone who's paid your tuition for 2 years a loser." Silence settled over the room, heavy and uncomfortable. Their father cleared his throat. "This is ridiculous. Ethan's always been too sensitive. He can't just walk away from his family like this. Grace's expression didn't change. He didn't walk away from his family. He walked away from people who treated him like he wasn't part of one. 2 hours later, across town, Ethan sat in the corner booth of a quiet cafe. His hands wrapped around a steaming cup of coffee. Frank Delgado slid into the seat across from him. Once a client, now a trusted friend, Frank ran a small private investigations firm. "It's done," Frank said, sliding a thumb drive across the table. "Full audit of Brad's business accounts, Danielle's spending habits, and your parents' mortgage history. All the proof you'll need." Ethan pocketed the drive. "And the contractor payments?" Frank smirked. "Disappeared exactly the way you told me to handle them. The suppliers will be calling Brad by lunchtime." Ethan nodded, his mind already 3 moves ahead. "Good. What about Emma?" Frank's tone softened. "She's been calling her friend nonstop. Sounds like she's starting to realize her parents haven't exactly been honest about who's been paying for what." Ethan looked out the window, watching the traffic crawl by. "The sooner she sees the truth, the better. But I'm not forcing her. She come to her own conclusions." Back at the Carter house, Grace was still at the kitchen table, calmly dismantling years of assumptions. "Danielle," she said, turning to Ethan's sister, "you've been making interest-only payments on your condo for the last 3 years. The emergency fund that's been covering your shortfall. That was Ethan's money too. It's gone now." Danielle's face paled. "He can't just he already has," Grace replied, closing the folder, "and before you claim this is cruel, asked for nothing from any of you in return except basic respect." Brad slammed his hand on the table. "So what now? He just cuts us off and walks away?" Grace's eyes were steady. "No, he walks forward. Without you." That evening, as Brad and Danielle scrambled to call suppliers and their parents sat in stunned silence, Ethan was back in his workshop. He ran his hand along the smooth edge of a walnut dining table. The kind of piece he'd built hundreds of times before. His phone buzzed. A single text from his mother. "We didn't realize how much you've done for us. Please come home." Ethan stared at it for a long moment, then placed the phone face down on the workbench. The following afternoon, Ethan returned to the Carter family home not as the timid brother, but as a man ready to face what had been ignored for years. Grace stood at his side as they were ushered into the living room. His mother's eyes widened, her lips trembling. Brad and Danielle exchanged uneasy glances. Emma, arms crossed, sat stiffly on the sofa. "Why are you here?" his mother asked, voice shaking. Ethan met her gaze evenly. "To have a conversation we should have had long ago." Grace pulled out a thick folder and set it on the coffee table. "This contains everything. Financial documents, emails, text messages, evidence of years of disrespect, neglect, and the way Ethan's contributions were overlooked or taken for granted." Danielle scoffed. "You're making a mountain out of nothing." Grace shook her head. "No, Danielle. This mountain is built on months of careful documentation. For example, Ethan paid for Emma's private lessons, college prep courses, and even the down payment on her car. Yet he was called a loser repeatedly by members of this family, including Emma." Emma's eyes flickered down to her lap. Ethan continued, voice calm but firm. "I didn't leave because I wanted to. I left because you made it clear I was never part of this family the way I thought I was." His mother reached out, tears in her eyes. "We didn't know, we thought you were fine." "That's the problem," Ethan said quietly. "You never asked." Brad stood abruptly. "You can't just walk away from your family and expect us to roll over." Ethan stood as well. The years of pain behind his eyes now replaced with quiet resolve. "I don't expect anything from you anymore. But I will protect myself and the life I've built. I've already done more for this family than you'll ever see." He turned to Emma. "And you get to decide who you want in your life." Emma stood, voice firm despite the tears in her eyes. "I'm staying with Uncle Ethan." Grace nodded approvingly. "The legal documents formalizing this are ready for signature." When you're ready. The room was silent. the weight of truth settling heavily on every shoulder. 3 months later, Ethan stood in his newly expanded workshop, sunlight filtering through large windows onto freshly sanded oak and walnut planks. The air smelled of sawdust and possibility. Frank Delgado knocked and entered, holding an envelope. Got word the Carter family's vacation home finally sold. The proceeds covered all outstanding debts. Ethan nodded calmly. Good, they needed that fresh start, so did I. His phone buzzed a text from Emma. Scholarship interview went great. Professor said my essay on finding family in unexpected places was the best she'd read. Love you, Uncle Ethan. A genuine smile spread across Ethan's face. The pain of rejection still lingered but was softened by the new bonds he was building. He glanced at the framed photo on the wall, a candid shot from a happier family reunion, cropped to just him and Emma, laughing together. He had walked away, labeled a loser, but in walking away, he'd found something far more valuable: respect, dignity, and a family of his own making. Some called it bitter. He called it justice. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to our channel for more. Click on the video on the screen, and I'll see you next time.